when it comes to Texas, there's a lot made around a certain gesture that the folks know as horns down. Now, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you just throw that up because you're an Oklahoma fan. We respect it, more power to you. But I think there's sort of been some confusion as to how the folks in Austin, like the true Texas fans, feel about the horns down gesture. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Rodney Terry is the head basketball coach at Texas. They lose to UCF. And UCF starts throwing up that horns down gesture. And Rodney Terry, being the head coach of Texas, he got fired up. He was saying it was classless. He was yelling at UCF players saying, hey, don't do that. And I think it kind of drew a different reaction from the Texas fans. Like, Texas fans are like, dude, come on. Just like, we lost the basketball game. Like, shake hands, keep it moving. And then it happened against BYU in basketball. You had some fans lined up in the student section with shirts that read horns down. And I think it was the BYU faculty that came out and said, hey, take those shirts off. We don't want y'all doing that. And again, more power to BYU. They were trying to emphasize sportsmanship. But it's something that we've seen now, especially in the football world too, where you can't throw up horns down in the Big 12 at least during a game. That was a penalty. But again, I think there's this disconnect around how the horns down gesture is perceived at a public level and how Texas fans actually feel about it. And I tweeted it out, and I think that the Texas faithful that follow me on Twitter sort of reaffirmed my feeling on this. No Texas fans, or a very, very small portion of the Texas fan base, is actually bothered by the horns down gesture. Like, it doesn't really matter to them. Is it like the ideal thing to see? Is it really like something you appreciate? Probably not. But does it get you worked up like you saw your head basketball coach get worked up? Do you think it should be a penalty during a game? I would have to believe over 90% of the fan base, and that's an unofficial statistic that I came up with right now in my head, I don't think anybody really feels that way, is what I'm trying to say. And I think to take it a step further, like the horns down gesture, if you're a Texas fan, you understand this. It only has as much power as you give it, right? Like, think about it this way. When you were on the playground at recess, back in grade school, kid sticks his tongue out at you. What would the teacher tell you to do? First, they'd probably tell that kid, hey, knock it off. But what would they tell you to do? Say, just ignore it. Just ignore it. They just want attention. They're just trying to get in your head. Just ignore it. And so if you ignored that kid sticking their tongue out at you long enough, what would happen? They would get bored. They would realize it has no impact, and they would just move on. And so I think Texas fans, from what I've been able to gather, seeing their head coach get upset about it and seeing folks have an issue with, people throwing up the horns down or the Big 12 making the penalty, they're like, hey, stop doing that. And when I say stop doing that, I'm not talking about the horns down gesture. I think they're saying, hey, stop doing that. Stop making us look soft by making us look like we're upset about that. Like, I think most Texas fans are like, hey, bring it on. Bring it on. We're all about that. Because it comes with the territory with college sports. And going back to what I just said, they don't like the fact that it makes them look soft because it kind of reemphasizes what I think a lot of people already publicly believe about Texas. Hey, they think they're better than everybody else. They're kind of a pinkies up operation there. They just kind of think their brand is superior, so they deserve, certain things that other college fan bases don't, including a certain penalty if you throw up their hand gesture in a downward motion. Like, Texas fans, I think, again, the majority of them do not feel strongly that that's like a disrespectful thing. I think most of them are like, again, hey, just like let it roll. Like that kid on the playground, just ignore them. Some fans, I think, take it a step further and they're like, all right, well, if you are throwing up the horns down, you must be thinking about us a lot. And that's the other part of this too. Like, as much responsibility is on Texas to adequately respond or appropriately respond to folks throwing up the horns down gesture, there's also the same amount of responsibility to a certain fan base throwing up the horns down gesture if you're not playing against Texas. Like, at that point, I think you do reemphasize the feeling that, hey, Texas is on your mind when you throw up the horns down gesture, but you're not playing them. Like, why do they have that much real estate in your head? So there's responsibility on both sides. But again, there is much worse things said during the heat of competition. There is much worse gestures made during the heat of competition, as we've seen throughout different points in the college football world. Texas fans don't want you coming to their aid. Texas fans don't want you giving the opposition a penalty because it makes them look soft. It makes them look like they can't handle themselves. So I just wanted us to kind of have a meet up on that. I kind of wanted us to just discuss how I think the college football fans feel about the horns down stuff going on. Very, very few Texas fans have I met in my life that are actually like, yeah, that horns down thing, that ticks me off. I just don't know how to act whenever I see the horns down. So it's coming in the SEC, I promise you. In the SEC, there will be a fair amount of that. And I think Texas will, those that are bothered by it, in for a rude awakening, and those that are not bothered by it, they will no longer be getting their treatment that they desire to not have. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.